So welcome to What's New in Autodesk Construction Cloud. These are the July 2025 updates. Our presenters today are our construction engagement engineers, Lisa Stine and Alan DeLuce. So for now, Alan, I'm going to hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, Lori. Welcome, everyone. As Lori said, this is the 2025 or July 2025 release for the ACC overview. As I said, or as Lori said, today, all right. So yeah, Lisa, when she arrives, and myself, personally, I've been with IMAGINiT now over the last 3.5 years or so, but I've been in the industry for quite a while on various sides, been in design, consulting, and been in VDC management in the industry. And when Lisa, if and when Lisa gets in, we'll give her a quick overview as well, and we'll get moving. So ultimately, we really appreciate you being here today. Today's, again, this is the 2025 release, and we're going to go back and forth. It may just be that myself is doing the reviews, but no big deal. And we're going to talk about each of the releases on the platform. All right. So yeah, we are bi-monthly, just for everyone's knowledge. If you haven't seen these, it's a bi-monthly release, and there's an overview from Autodesk, and then we try to follow it up very briefly after their overview. And ultimately, we just try to kind of give you guys some insight as far as our takeaways of on the ACC and those updates that are being provided. So yeah, July's releases. These are the platform-wide releases. So starting off with assets, or rather asset tracking and handover. So what we have added to in this latest release is forms for the handover within handover. So ultimately, with if you were familiar, if you've used ACC for quite a while, we ultimately had the that as-built export. We still have it. And it really depends on which way, what is the utility of the handover, or rather the turnover package that you want. Is it more of the as-built, or does it need to be more of the handover? The handover, which rolled out a few releases ago, really was really more geared towards just giving that client handover rather than just a pure as-built that may be for your archive, that kind of thing. And as we can see here with this release, we now have the addition of forms added to that handover. So again, making it a more comprehensive capability with forms. All right, where are we at? All right, field collaboration. So some of the tools within field collaboration, of course, our issues. If you are not utilizing issues in the ACC, I suggest that you take a look at them. They are very, very valuable in our workflow and the data and the analysis for ACC. These allow us, and that's for the entire life cycle, from design, pre-construction, through construction, and into even into operations. So depending on who you are, which role you play in the life cycle, you're going to have a lot of utility about or utilizing issues. And because they essentially, based on how you utilize them, they create your data set of tracking and activity that roll up to our dashboards on the back end, allowing us to kind of have insight into the health of our project by utilizing those the insights. So ultimately, the additions, this most recent release, are being able to now search by description. However we can add new capabilities for search and with issues is really, really important. All the additions and enhancements to issues are very, very helpful. For the web improvements, there's now versioning, the issue created on version has been added to the web version, and then an issue creation title selected on the web has been added this time as well. All right, data and intelligence. So
wait, Alan, I'm here. Do you want me to join?
But go ahead.
I know. I'll dive into, what are we talking about? Insight Builder, review data sets. Perfect. All right, so good for me to keep going, Alan?
Yes.
Is that okay? All right. Okay. So data is only as valuable as our ability to see it, to understand it, and to act on it. And that is exactly where the Autodesk Construction Cloud Insight Builder is going to come in. So it's the engine inside of the ACC that turns project activity into dashboards and reports that you can then use to make better decisions. So in this product release, the Insight Builder is getting a new data source, and that is reviews from Autodesk Docs along with a ready-to-use dashboard template. So with this update, any review workflow data from Autodesk Docs can now flow directly into Insight Builder, and that means that you can track metrics like being able to count the number of open reviews, and that's going to allow you to instantly see workload and bottlenecks. You're going to be able to count the number of overdue reviews, so then you can identify where action is lagging. You can look at the average days that it's taking to close reviews, so you can monitor efficiency over time. You can look at approved versus rejected document counts. That's going to help you measure quality and review outcomes. You can look at document counts per project. That's going to help you quickly compare project volumes and activity. And this matters because document reviews can be one of the slowest moving parts of a project, and we know that slow reviews can delay downstream work. So by bringing reviews data into the Insight Builder, you can now visualize exactly where and why delays are happening. So as an example, if you're a PM, you can spot overdue reviews before they create scheduling problems. If you're an executive, you can now compare review efficiency across different projects, and you can allocate resources where they're needed the most. So a couple of best practices I would personally recommend, to ensure review metadata is complete, right? I might fill out all the required fields so that the data is clean and accurate. We know that in the Autodesk Construction Cloud, a lot of information is not required to fill out. It's kind of a nice to have, but as with anything, the better information we put in, the better information that we're going to get out. So always recommend that you fill things out as robustly as is possible. So this update makes Insight Builder even more powerful by pulling in one of the most important workflows in Autodesk Docs, and that is, again, reviews. So with real-time visibility and ready-made dashboards, you can move from reactive problem solving into a more proactive space, and that's really a win for every role on the project team. All right, Alan, let's go over to reports.
Can you see?
Nope. Now I can. Okay.
There we go.
Cool. All right, so reports in the Autodesk Construction Cloud are really about transparency. They're about accountability. And what they do is they give us a clear record of what's happening on our entire project. So who did it, when they did it, really kind of giving us an activity log or an audit trail. It's not as nice of a way to say activity log. But one challenge we've had in the past is that when a project member was removed, their name could disappear from certain report views, and then it's really hard to understand. It's harder to trace, who did these certain actions, because when a member is removed, there's just kind of this gap into, who did those things if we just take a person out. So with this July update, anytime a report includes actions that were taken by a user or a member who's no longer active in the project, their name will now appear as username. It'll still be their name, but it'll say removed after. So they'll just be kind of that descriptor there. And this matters because from a compliance and accountability perspective, this is truly critical. So if you think about things like audits or dispute resolution or any kind of warranty work, if you're reviewing a report 6 months maybe after turnover, you need to know exactly who created an issue, uploaded a document, approved a submittal, there's a lot of liability that we run into there. So even if they've since moved on to another company or role, we still need to go back and be able to kind of attach them to that activity. Without having this context, it's super easy for accountability to get lost, and then that can slow down investigations or can make it harder to validate project history. So for an example, let's say that you're reviewing a project safety report and now you see that you just have removed user uploaded the last batch of safety inspections. Without having that update, that might have just shown as a blank or a generic placeholder, and that's going to kind of force you to dig through old contact lists. So now you see the full original name and it's just going to be marked as removed, which tells you two things. It tells you who it was and it tells you that they're no longer active. So it's going to be super helpful for everyone in the project. So this update really is focused on protecting the integrity of your project record. So by keeping the identity of removed users visible, ACC is going to ensure that your reports remain accurate, that they remain traceable, and that they remain defensible, no matter how your team changes over time. Okay, so now we're going to move into project standardization, specifically Bridge. Okay, so one of the biggest advantages of the Autodesk Construction Cloud is the ability to connect data between projects, and we do this by utilizing a solution within the ACC called Bridge. So whether you're standardizing project templates or you're sharing documentation with a partner company, or maybe you're rolling out best practices across, several different jobs, Bridge is going to ensure that the right information gets to the right place without giving away any kind of unnecessary access to different components or workflows inside of your project. And so with this release, Bridge is going to get a significant usability boost, and that is progress indicators in Bridge detail pages. So in the past, when you push data through Bridge, you could confirm that the transfer had been initiated, but tracking progress was less transparent, so you might have had to refresh or check back later to see if everything actually made it over to that project. But now with progress indicators, the Bridge detail pages is going to show a live count of the items that have successfully been copied over, as well as the items that are still pending. So this is going to give you real-time visibility into how much of your data has made it across and how much is still in transit or is still pending. And this matters because it's important for mostly large data transfers. Smaller ones we can kind of dive in and see for ourselves. But if we think about pushing hundreds of files or sheets or other documentation, project templates, maybe just like corporate standard specifications, things like that into a live job, if we don't have progress tracking, it's super, super easy to wonder, did that actually get pushed over? And then you kind of have to go into all of the different crevices of that project and do all that digging, and that is kind of a time suck. So just having this visibility there, easy for you to look at, I think is going to be super helpful for a lot of folks. How I would make the most of this feature, or what I would consider the best practices of this feature, is I would batch logically. And what I mean by that is if you're pushing over large amounts of data, I would work to group related files so that you can track them a little bit more easily. And then I would also monitor during high priority transfers. So what I mean by that is, especially or specifically during time sensitive updates, I would work to keep the Bridge detail page open so that I can really confirm what's been completed in kind of a real-time capacity. All right, so that is Bridge. Then we're going to move over into project and account admin, specifically account admin. And so some people think this is not the flashiest part of the construction, but I think account admin is great. So, and I also think it's one of the most important parts of a project, because if you don't have your account admin set up, then you have nothing. So for account admins, managing multiple projects and users, visibility and control are everything. And this July release delivers 2 upgrades that make it easier to see who's doing what and to navigate large project portfolios way more efficiently. So the first feature that we're looking at is viewing account role members. So we now have the ability to view all of our members assigned to specific account roles along with the projects that they are involved in. So you all should be aware that when we have a project in the Autodesk Construction Cloud, when we invite our members, we also associate them with a specific role, and that is how we assign people to specific workflows or permissions, all that good stuff. So kind of think of this feature as more of a role-based roster for your entire account. So you can open the account admin tool, you can select a role. So maybe I say, I don't know, QA/QC manager, and then I would instantly see everyone that's in that role, and I would also see where they're assigned. So this is it's going to be super helpful specifically for auditing permission, so making sure that the right people have the right roles, doing things like resource planning, so seeing where projects' key team members are already tied to before assigning them somewhere else, maybe doing things like onboarding and offboarding. And then the feature 2, the second part of this release, is project filtering options. So the second update is all about navigation. So for accounts with dozens or even hundreds of projects, finding the right one can be super tedious. With this new option to filter, our account admins can narrow their view using criteria like project status, location, or any other metadata that's associated with their project. So instead of having to scroll through this massive list, they can quickly drill down into exactly the projects that they need to manage. So I know that these features might seem a little bit admin and a little bit boring, and maybe they are a little bit, but they're also super strategic because better role visibility and smarter project filtering is going to make large-scale account management in the Autodesk Construction Cloud a lot faster, a lot cleaner, and a lot more secure. And that means that you get to do more fun stuff, the things that you want to do. So, all right, with that, I will hand it over to my way more exciting and fun counterpart, Alan.
But older. Yeah, so
much.
we'll jump over here to the Docs platform for the updates there. So for files, a couple things here, and just one thing to remember for everyone: Docs is files, files is Docs. The issues indicator column. So whenever we have issues tied to a specific file, we don't have to go digging for that anymore. It's very handy to be able to just know that there's a issue tied to a file, and we can go and kind of dig in and jump directly. Hey, there's something here. I'm working on this. Why, something maybe popped up. Why is that there? You now can see that you have that unresolved issue. Also searching in selected folders. So you can run a single search across multiple selected folders to kind of drill in, and as opposed to having to go for either a single folder or across the entire project if you search via the project overall. And by all means, if we didn't say it, please do drop questions in. We've got myself and Lisa will try to tackle those here at the end in the Q&A. All right. Additionally, for files, we also now have the ability, kind of an enhanced mobile search and filter by custom attributes. So for our field teams, they can search and filter by these custom attributes. Those attributes are either added, typically they're being added to on the desktop side, but ultimately the files now have an enhanced mobile search feature, which when you're in the field having to go and search, if it's 5 degrees outside, having to take off your gloves to do a search can be very tedious, and whatever we can do to make search faster on our mobile side is really going to be kind of that quality of life enhancement, so that we're not having to fish around for information that might be elusive from time to time. All right, so now enhancements with packages in this release. The packages now are supported in the template. So one thing to kind of stress for everyone, if you're not, if you haven't really dialed in your template in Docs and Build, I would suggest taking a step back, go back and work on that template. try to dial it in. We have a lot of folks that it may be the case that your template is just set up for your folder and file structure, and that's awesome. It's great. But we also want to be able to, in this case, obviously, we can now add packages to it, but we want to make sure that we've got the rest of our template configured, whether it's members or workflows, reporting, all of the various things that you need, that you can utilize in your project. On every single project, if it's going to be used, it needs to, in a given project, it needs to be in the template kind of situation. Also want to impress upon folks to, when you're going and making various content, and in this case maybe forms, make sure that you go and use those or dialing those in the library location of your project, or account admin, I should say. But yeah, ultimately packages now are available to us in our files, in templates. Okay, reviews. So we now have the ability to do a skip, a one-click skip. So instead of having to jump in and actually get into the review itself, we can just click skip here at the top level there, or on that top row you can see. This allows us to just essentially move something forward without having to even dive into it, knowing that, hey, I'm dealing with this right now. I just had a conversation with somebody. Just move it along, and if you had initiated that review process, by all means, you could just skip something and move it on to the kind of the approval phase, that kind of thing. So just again, maybe it's maybe a small quality of life enhancement, but as we all know, every pick and click matters, and every step, every click removed from a given process is going to make our day go faster. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to Lisa for some build improvements.
Thanks, Alan. Alan, what would you do with 2 less clicks a day? What would you do?
What would I do with 2 less?
Time?
I would drink more coffee, which is not a good idea.
The lamest answer ever.
Oh,
all right. All right. I am gonna. Yeah, at the Cracker Barrel, right? I am gonna dive into Autodesk Builds, and we're gonna start with project management, specifically submittals releases. So the first is for cover pages for our detail reports. Okay. This is a really big one. We've had a lot of requests for this. I've been hearing about this one for a super long time while I was at Autodesk. And so this July release introduces a cover page for the package detail report. And it's a small change, but it does have a really large impact on how our teams review submittal information. So now in Autodesk Build, the package detail report is often used to share the full breakdown of the entire submittal package that has all of our items or statuses, any kind of review notes that it consists inside of that. And with this update, we're now going to have a dedicated cover page to automatically be generated at the front of that entire report. So that cover page is going to provide a snapshot view of the overall status of the package, the number of items in each of the status categories, and then the key dates and milestones of that entire submittal package, as well as any other top-level details that help the team understand where things stand before digging into any of the item-by-item details that they can dive into in the actual package itself. So this is a really large improvement for anyone that's managing dozens or hundreds of submittals at once, specifically for different personas. So for our project managers, it means that they can glance at the cover page and they can immediately know whether a package is ready for review, or if it's partially complete, or maybe if it's at risk. For our design reviewers, it can help them prioritize which packages to focus on quickly based on those statuses and deadlines. And for owners and just other project stakeholders, it can give a quick professional summary without requiring them to look through the entirety of that submittal package. So kind of some best practices that I would recommend pertaining specifically to that cover page. I would keep the package data accurate, obviously. I think that should be true for everything we're doing, but the cover page is only as good as the underlying data that exists inside of the submittal package. I would also use it for for what I would call quick triage, right? So I'd prioritize which packages need attention right now. And I would also include it in your reporting workflow. So whether I'm sending it to a client or I'm archiving it for closeout, that snapshot, that cover sheet is going to provide long-term reference value. It's something that we can utilize again and again. So this cover page update is about clarity. It's about efficiency. It is going to do that by providing a high-level summary before diving into all of the details of that specific submittal. And Autodesk Build is going to help teams understand package status faster, make better decisions, and present information in just a more clear way. Okay. So we can go to the next slide, Alan, which is going to be on submittals and RFIs. All right, cool. I see it now. Yes. All right. So this is listing responses in chronological order. So sticking with Autodesk Build, we're going to talk about a quality of life update that makes reviewing submittals and RFIs a little bit more intuitive. The July release changes, it changes how the responses are displayed. They're now listed in chronological order, and that is talking specifically to the submittals module as well as the RFI module, again, in Autodesk Build. So previously, responses to submittals and RFIs, they would be displayed from the newest response at the top, or they'd be grouped in ways that made the conversation feel a little bit fragmented. So this can make it harder to follow the sequence of back and forth between all of our project stakeholders. But now all of the responses are ordered chronologically. So we have the oldest at the top, the newest at the bottom. So you can read them just like an email thread or any kind of conversation log in whatever kind of communication platform you're utilizing. And this is going to apply everywhere that any kind of response appears. So on the submittals and RFI detail pages, in any kind of generated reports that you're making, and when transitioning or setting a new review step in either of those workflows. And this matters because this change makes it far easier to follow the narrative of a submittal or an RFI. So for either of those reviewers, submittal reviewers or RFI reviewers, it's going to help to quickly catch up on the entire conversation without having to jump around with kind of disconnected workflows. For our PMs, it's going to be a lot easier to see how decisions evolved and whether any critical information was missed. And for any kind of compliance purposes or legal purposes, the complete logical flow of communication is just going to be preserved in a better capacity. So I think that this workflow is going to be super helpful. This is something that I know has been on a feature request list for quite a while, so I'm super excited about this. I know that this might seem like kind of a teeny interface change, but it does have a really big impact on the clarity and decision making by all of our key project stakeholders. So by presenting the responses in this chronological order, Autodesk Build ensures everybody can follow the conversation from start to finish, and we're going to eliminate confusion and a lot of wasted and kind of time that we spend on redundancies and just sorting through information. All right, let's go on to the next slide, Alan, which is still for RFIs, but specifically for public APIs. So let's look at an update that's especially exciting, super exciting for teams that are integrating Autodesk Build with other software. And this is the introduction of public APIs for the RFI module. So this change is going to open the door to deeper automation and connectivity between Autodesk Build and the rest of your organization's tech stack. So something that I truly do love about Autodesk is that we don't make you walk away from other software that might be key or integral to your business. I know when I was in construction, there were specific things that we had to use as an organization. That might have been our ERP system. It might have been other accounting software. That might have just been in-house things that we were using. And I really appreciate that. If there is an open API with another piece of technology, Autodesk is always pretty eager and willing to connect to and play with that software. So I'm very excited for this new feature release. But with this release, developers and system integrators can now use new API endpoints to interact with the RFI workflow. And these APIs allow external applications to create RFIs, to update existing RFIs, and to add responses and attachments to RFIs. So this means revving up any kind of documentations, drawings, sheets, all that good stuff. So in practical terms, this means that your RFI process in Autodesk Build does not have to just live all alone in isolation. It can now be connected to other tools that you use for all of your PM work, that you use for scheduling, that you use for asset tracking, any kind of compliance work that you do. So obviously we need to get, if this is something that is of interest to you, we would definitely need to work with your IT team, development team. They don't tend to not like if we do things behind their back, so we would want to pull them into this to kind of get them involved and get their assistance with this. And we would also want to test it thoroughly, never want to kind of disrupt a workflow that is working well. I think that when we do an integration, it's super important to maybe do a pilot around that and just make sure that it's going well, because if something goes wrong, it's super, super easy to blame the software instead of maybe just taking a look at the integration was mapped ineffectively. So just some things to consider. But again, this update is going to take RFIs from being a standalone feature to being part of a fully connected project ecosystem. And so through the leveraging of the public APIs, you can now streamline data flow, eliminate redundant entry, and give your teams and your leadership a clearer, faster view of all of your RFI activity. Okay, let's go into cost management.
I do want to just make one very brief comment. If there's interest about, if there's interest from the group about APIs and connecting the dots between third-party solutions and integrations, by all means, reach out to us. We've got some IP that lets us talk back and forth to these third-party solutions as well. While Autodesk has opened up this public API here, we've got our development team that is fully vetted and been developing these API integrations across the board. So if there's anything that's been on your mind about trying to connect to third-party solutions to ACC, by all means reach out, because we've got a lot of exciting things going on in that realm. Costs.
Yeah, Alan. We sure do. All right. Thank you for that. Yes, cost management. All right, so starting with forecasting. Yeah, let's shift over to cost management. This July release adds additional flexibility to your cash flow views. This is going to allow you to switch from more of a dollar-based view to a quantity-based view, and it's also going to connect that view to different date range resources. So this is going to mean that you can now forecast using the metrics that make the most sense for your specific project. Previously, what we were doing in the forecasting component of cost management inside of Autodesk Build was the cash flow view was going to show cost over time, and that was super, super good for tracking spend, but it wasn't always the best fit for every forecasting need. But now you get to choose to view quantities per period rather than dollars per period. So this is going to be super valuable, or more valuable, for teams who are wanting to track progress in physical units. So if you're looking to track progress, maybe cubic yards of concrete, or you're looking to track square footage of drywall, or I don't know, the number of fixtures that you're installing in a commercial space. I think this is going to be super helpful for you. And then on top of that, this update is going to tie the cash flow view to the date range resources. So you're going to be able to distribute resources within specific time frames, and then the quantities will display in the cash flow chart, which is going to allow for much more precise forecasting. So this is super important, because for different projects and even different phases of the same project, they all require different forecasting methods. So when we're looking at, self-performing contractors, seeing different quantities per week or month, that can be more meaningful than seeing just dollars across the board. Sometimes owners can care about looking at, whether production rates are keeping up with overall schedule commitments. I think that is often very important for project managers as well. Estimators, sometimes are more concerned with validating that the planned quantities are aligning with the budget and procurement schedules. So different for different folks, but I think meaningful for all of those people nonetheless. So excited for that one. From there, let's go to the next slide, Alan. And we're going to cover budget control and contract management. All right, so in this July release, Autodesk Build added compliance enhancements, and those give admins more control over contract and change order requirements, and they're also going to help ensure supplier quotes meet project standards before they've even been submitted. So there's two key parts to this update. The first is condition-based requirements. So admins can now define compliance rules tied to specific statuses of contracts and change orders. So for example, let's say that you might require I don't know, certain safety certifications before a contract can be moved from maybe a draft status to an active status, or insurance documents before a change order can be approved. So for RFQ compliance requirements, when you're issuing a RFQ, you can require your suppliers to include maybe relevant compliance documentation as part of their submission. So this could be things like proof of licensing, maybe you need to require some kind of bonding, insurance, right? So this is going to ensure that incomplete or non-compliant bids are going to be flagged immediately. So they're not going to even reach the review stage. They're going to be immediately flagged. And this is super important because with this new workflow, we're reducing risk and we're also standardizing your overall processes. If we make compliance checks part of the workflow, you're going to prevent work from moving forward until the correct documentation has actually been put in place. And you're also going to improve quality workflow, which is going to make sure that every supplier is meeting your company's or your client's standards. And I think that that's super important. Okay. And then the final update for cost management is going to be around settings. If you've worked with cost management before, you know that there are about 200,000 million settings for cost management inside of Autodesk Build. But a new setting that we have is e-signature adapter enhancements. And e-signatures, I think, are one of those features that you don't really think too much about until they end up saving you a ton of time. So whether you're maybe sending off contracts or you're doing anything around change management or other approvals, being able to sign digitally is going to keep the workflow moving without a lot of delays and also without a lot of loss of information or just missing signatures. So in this release, Autodesk Build, and then again specifically cost management, has made several e-signature adapter enhancements that are going to make the process more flexible, a lot more consistent, and way more user-friendly. So this update has three main components to it. The first is the role as a signer type. So you can now assign a role, not just a specific person as a signer. And again, in Autodesk Build, we can assign different permissions or workflows by either a role, a company, or a member, right? So now we can assign out as a role. And the list of roles is defined by your account admin. So that's going to ensure consistency across projects. So you can't have like 5 million different types of roles in there. There has to be kind of a method to that madness in there. And if there's only one user assigned to that role, then the system will autofill their name for them. So you don't have to grab that role and then also grab the user. There's also project level sign-in. So a single team member can authenticate with their e-signature account once, and that's going to grant all project users access to the e-sig workflow for that project. And this is going to help to reduce the friction of every user having to sign in individually. And then also there's editability before sending, so you can now edit the subject line, the message, the signer list, and then CCs right before sending the document off for signature without having to cancel it and start over. So this all matters because this is all about efficiency and standardization. The role as a signer feature ensures that documents always go to the right person in that role, even if team members change. The project level sign-in eliminates repetitive logins and keeps everybody moving faster. And then the editability before sending means that there's fewer mistakes. So if you notice a missing CC or you need to clarify a subject line, you can fix it super fast instead of restarting the entire workflow. All right, and that, oh, I am not done. Now I'm going to go over into asset tracking and handover and cover assets, and then I'll hand it over to Alan. All right, so this last piece, I'm actually super excited for this one. Okay, so this is on assets and specifically handover, but we're going to talk about assets. So the first is a mobile bulk edit. Now project teams can select multiple assets from the asset list on their mobile devices, and then we can update them all at once, and that includes asset statuses, any kind of custom attributes, references. This is a really big change from having to open and update each asset individually. So if we think about, having to inspect 15 pieces of equipment, I used to have to do commissioning in hospitals. That's when I learned that there's morgues in hospitals, and that was really scary for me. But imagine that you've just inspected 15 pieces of equipment and you need to mark them all off as installed. Now you can do it in one action instead of having to go through each of those separate pieces of equipment and changing their statuses. And then the second feature, that this is what I'm super stoked on, is the QR generator. So now project teams can download and print QR codes for assets, and they can either individually or in a bulk capacity generate a formatted report containing multiple QR codes at a time, and then those codes can be attached to the physical asset. So anyone in the field can then scan them with their mobile device or their phone and instantly pull up all of the relevant information around the asset. So I think that's super, super cool. I think about that in the very exciting world of electric utilities and putting those on transmission lines to see what's up there. So really exciting stuff, but from there, I'm going to hand it over to Alan.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
I want to make sure we get through the rest of this and have time for some Q&A. So as far as the BIM Collaborate updates, Autodesk has been spending quite a bit of time in focused effort on the model coordination platform. And so what is so this public beta has now dropped, and batch issue creation, because we want to be able to just expedite the process for issues, especially when we're working with in like a BIM coordination meeting or a design coordination meeting, model driven. It can be super tedious to have to make multiple issues. So we can expedite that process by utilizing templates generally, but then also by doing this utilizing batch issues. As well, in public beta, the movable push pins on the model. You can now literally select it. Oops, I messed it up. It was supposed to be on, in the image there, maybe that was on the wrong column that you needed to pinpoint for a specific clash or what have you. We can go and move those around instead of having to delete it. And just one thing to mention about these push pins issues in the ACC, certainly here on model coordination, but just generally even if you're not utilizing model coordination, when you place a push pin on a model element and you're utilizing issues, just remember that there's the really useful Revit coordination issues tool that you download. I believe you'd have to download it from from the desktop connector, not desktop connector, but you get the idea. You got to download it to add it into the issues add-in in Revit. And you can also do that in Navisworks, but ultimately, if you're familiar with the issue add-in, if you're familiar with utilizing issues, when you place it on the BIM model, you get the little thumbnail that you see there. You can mark up that thumbnail, and then again, with that Revit add-in loaded in, you get to see the same panel, you get to see the issue pin, it's in context in the model. It's just a very valuable solution for essentially communicating from design meetings or coordination meetings to the technicians or detailers or the drafters to be able to go make those changes. They see it in context. It's right there in the model. You don't have to go back and forth between ACC issues panel and Revit. So it's just something that I think is hopefully being leveraged, but I do tell people about it and they didn't know that it existed. And again, it's in Revit and in Navis. Very valuable tool to expedite your daily clash resolution. Takeoff. So updates in the July release for Takeoff. We now have this new public beta. It's the data connector support for Takeoff data. So it has this opens up a new level of reporting capabilities and analysis and integration for the teams that rely on quantity takeoff at that pre-con phase. So with this takeoff update, the data connector allows us to extract that data, specifically with the specific data points being classification, the takeoff type, the takeoff item, quantity, unit costs, carbon data as well. And basically this allows us to capture that data from takeoff, and it's no longer, we're going to be able to utilize that. We're no longer just having to observe it. So ultimately, for those who utilize Power BI, which kind of getting back to the whole concept of Insights Builder in ACC, that's Autodesk's basically Power BI. Ultimately, we can pull that takeoff data into Power BI type of context as well, and enhance our pre-con and takeoff and estimating process with greater visibility and access to kind of massage a data set that gives us an analytical tool that helps us to kind of, again, enhance our design and estimating and pre-con process. It really helps us for better transparency and decision making. Why is our estimate where it is? Well, in the takeoff, I had a better insight into that data from my insights. Ultimately, for estimators who utilize takeoff in conjunction with maybe Excel spreadsheets, or maybe are utilizing takeoff as the takeoff solution and then pulling that data over into perhaps ProEst, this is very helpful to, again, enhance the information we're grabbing, and we can even utilize some of the cost data that we can input into takeoff to help us with kind of preliminary and dynamic cost modeling. So this also, depending on who you are, which persona you are in the process, this helps us. A greater data set helps executives to understand where we are in projects. So if it's basically we're able to provide data where maybe executives never had access and visibility to that information. Now when we can give them the data set for a Power BI, with a BI solution, give them dashboards, it allows them to see kind of that historical context of where were we on the last project that was similar and where are we today. Kind of do that comparison, and again, everybody loves a dashboard. A picture's worth 1,000 words rather than just lines of text. So very, very helpful there. Moving on to the mobile app. I know we're getting close to time. I want to make sure we have time for questions. So enhancements on the mobile app in the project management side. So the in-project sync, if you've ever downloaded or if you ever got into a project on your phone or tablet and you wanted to update that, there's the option to click project sync right there at the top right corner. There's the kind of the circle arrows. Instead of having to go back to the projects page and do the sync, you can go and do it right there in the project, because maybe you took a phone call from someone and they had made an update back in the office. You wanted to synchronize that up to your machine, or sorry, to your device. You can just go and click that right in real time, and have that not having to leave the project itself to go back to the main projects page. Just again, it's little things like this that remove those picks and clicks, and again, every single click matters. So anytime we remove a click, it's going to make our life our work life a little bit faster. The mobile model viewer update. It was in beta. It's now out of beta, and it's the default. So there were some real nice enhancements when this beta came out. It was quite a while ago. It was probably 4 or 5 releases ago, so maybe 6 to 8 months or more when the beta came out. But now it's public, and for the mobile model viewing, it's a great enhancement. All right. So now that is all the slides. I want to get to some Q&A. Lisa.
Yeah. Is there a way to show the Revit version on the ACC pages for specific clients with their own naming conventions? We can't add the Revit version to the project file name, so it's nice to have the Revit version called out somewhere on the main project page rather than being hidden in the project metadata.
You got me. I saw that, and I was even trying to search,
you should
but
have told me not to ask it.
Do what?
I said you should have told me not to ask it.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Great.
We will find out.
I mean, we'll find it out.
Yeah, Aaron will find out, and we will reach back out to you. But great question. There's a couple other questions, Alan, that I'd love to ask you. Can the new can the new reporting features filter data by custom fields like project phase or region for more targeted insights?
Yes.
Yeah.
They can.
That's great.
There's better filtering. Yes, exactly. There's better filtering and the reporting features. If you're another thing that if you're not utilizing reporting out of the ACC, you really should and schedule those reports. Everybody talks about automation, and again, with these new enhancements, we can make a more focused report. But ultimately, use those reports. Let it land in your email on Monday morning, and it gives you kind of you can set up a task list for yourself for the week. Hey, what's coming up this week? What are the RFIs I need to answer? What am I behind on? That kind of thing. Utilize the reports. They're very, very valuable.
With the new updates, can we now link completed forms directly to the project handover package so that they're automatically included in the archive?
I believe so. Yes, with the with that enhancement of handover, where they added the forms, those are now available in the handover package. I hope that's the answer to the question. I don't know if we were supposed to go further, but yes, forms are now part of the handover. They were already part of the as-built originally, but they are added now.
Okay, and the last one that I have for you is, let's see. Oh, does the new issues update allow us to bulk edit fields or assign multiple issues at once to streamline resolution?
Yes, it does.
And why do you personally think that that is an advantageous release?
Well, I think that when we go and fill out issues, we may or may not fill out every single parameter of those issues. That's something when talking to clients, it's like, hey, I don't need all of this information. If you're doing a punch list and you just want to fill out 1 or 2 data points about every issue, you don't want to fill out everything, maybe you come back to the office and you can go and kind of bulk change information about said issues rather than with a couple, with like 2 or 3 clicks back in the office, rather than having to do tons of different entries when you're on site, something like that. So yes, making those changes in bulk is a very powerful add.
So again, Lisa, Alan, thank you so much for today. And thanks, everyone.
You got it.
Enjoy your day, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.